Eurasia Group released its top risks, and of course Russia was at the top of it. The political consultancy believes a humiliating defeat could turn it into the world's most dangerous rogue state. Ian Bremmer is behind the report. He joins me now from New York. Ian, so Russia's made the necessary sounds that one would expect. Do they have much that they can do as a result?
They have very little that they can do on the ground in Ukraine to take more territory. And keep in mind that the territories that they've annexed illegally, 4 of them, they don't occupy a lot of that territory right now. And it's likely they're going to occupy less of it over the course of the coming months, given an expected Ukrainian counteroffensive. But that doesn't mean that there's nothing the Russians can do. And we've already seen some reports of Russian financing of a far-right Spanish group to try to assassinate some Spanish leaders. We've seen some cyber attacks against Polish logistics companies in the defense and military space. We did just recently see an explosion of a pipeline on the Latvia-Lithuania border. We don't have any explanation for that. I'm pointing to these as data points in terms of the war expanding potentially beyond Ukraine as the Russians have so little they can do on the ground in Ukraine. And keep in mind, Richard, that the Russians see this very much as a proxy war against NATO, that the reason they are losing against Ukraine, the reason they're being humiliated is not just because the Ukrainians are courageous, though they are, but because NATO is providing such staggering amounts of training, intelligence, and military equipment, which continues to escalate pretty much every week.
Related to this, I was in my morning and weekend reading, I was seeing about the military exercises that South Africa is going to be doing with Russia and with China. Is there a legitimate argument for essentially the West to say to South Africa, even though the South Africans have said we are friends with Russia, oi, whose side are you on?
Oh, sure. There's a legitimate reason to say that. And their response is going to be, you guys are a bunch of hypocrites. I mean, I was with the South African foreign minister last week, and this is before her photo op yesterday with the Russian foreign minister. And she was deeply unhappy with the idea that the West is saying this is about democracies versus autocracies. From her perspective, massive amounts of support for white European Ukrainians from the United States and from the West, and how much support would the U.S. provide in all sorts of other conflicts that have deep humanitarian implications for innocents on the ground, but don't seem to be as strategically important for NATO, for example. And so what we're seeing is not just from South Africa. We saw President Lula, recently elected in Brazil, blaming the United States and NATO in part for the war in Ukraine. We've seen some of that even from Mexican President AMLO. We've certainly seen a very neutral position from the Indian Prime Minister, who's now buying 33 times more oil from Russia than they were before the war started. Why? Because they're getting a significant discount. It's not just the Chinese, Xi Jinping, that's the big friend with the Russians on the global stage. Pretty much every developing country is taking that position.
The tanks that are going to be sent, whether they're game changers, we could debate until they actually get there and we find out. But they're certainly going to involve an escalation, or at least a more muscular response by the Ukrainians. That's the very purpose of them there. So do you fear that this escalates the battles?
It clearly escalates the battle, though it escalates it in a way that is perfectly understandable and justified given the Russian invasion and the war crimes they've committed. I think what it really does change is it should show to the Russians, beyond any question of a doubt, that NATO is together in terms of their military commitment to the Ukrainians for the foreseeable future. Russia's strategy for the last months has been they expect that they're going to be able to get weakness and divisions inside NATO, that the West wouldn't continue to provide this level of support to Ukraine as you go through difficult winters, as it has more economic costs. You know, and that's the Russians are just wrong on that. And so the question is, when the Russians know that strategy doesn't work, what do they do next?
All right, but Ian, back to the earlier question. What happens with the bifurcation or the division of the developing world supporting or at least not opposing Russia? And how do you put Humpty Dumpty back together globally after this is over, when not unreasonably NATO, well, individual countries will say to India, will say to South Africa, you talk tough on democracy, but you weren't with us when it counted.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, when it counted depends on who you're talking to. A lot of people think when it counted is the Palestinian issue. A lot of people think when it counted is the Armenians being cut off with in Nagorno-Karabakh right now, and nobody's talking about that. A lot of people say it's about Yemen. I mean, it really, there's so many of these developing countries that are saying that what really matters is not what's blaring in the headlines in the West, whether it's Democrats or Republicans or Europeans, consistently for the last 11 months. And I think what they say is that this is not about democracies. This is about the West, and we're deeply unhappy and dissatisfied with the way that's been framed. So NATO is together. NATO is stronger, meaningfully stronger than it was 11 months ago. Much more military spending, expansion coming on the books, certainly with Sweden, probably certainly with Finland, probably with Sweden, and also forward deployments. The G7 is stronger. The United States with its European allies and its Asian allies, the Japanese, are doubling defense spending. They have a major border with Russia too. We don't talk about that very often. But the developing world is not with the United States, NATO, and G7 on Ukraine, not in the slightest. And that's not about to change, Richard.
Yeah, I'm very glad we discussed that aspect of it. It's something that's often getting lost in the discussion. I'm grateful to you, sir, as always. Thank you.